Hi, I'm Phyllis Harmon. I'm a member of TV Toastmasters. In this club, we have an opportunity to practice speaking before the camera as well as running the equipment room. If you're interested in being interviewed on TV Toastmasters or becoming a member, please go to toastmasters.org and look for us, or simply search for TV Toastmasters on the web.
Welcome again to TV Toastmasters. My name is Philip Mandel. I have the honor of interviewing a gentleman today who is no stranger to being in front of the camera, Mr. Eric Schmidt. Eric, welcome to TV Toastmasters.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir. You and I met just a couple of months ago, I think it was, at the at Denny Doyle's State of the City address here in beautiful Beaverton, Oregon.
Yep.
And I recognized you and said hi and so on, and then invited you to come to talk to us on TV Toastmasters, and you were gracious enough to accept.
My pleasure. Thank you for your gracious introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
When you get to my age, you really appreciate those things.
I appreciate it. Okay. So, of course, I remember you from being a news anchor, KOAN TV, and what was then Fox 49. And I think you mentioned you had been in government before then, and I'm just curious what you did and how you made these transitions.
Well, my first job out of high school was working for the United States House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., in the capital of the United States. I was in the tally clerk's office. And I'm giving away my age when I say I graduated in 1967, but that summer the tally clerk used these giant sheets of paper to tally the votes. And it was my job to take the vote tally sheet that had been done the day of and check it against the congressional record to make sure that the votes were correct.
Oh my.
So that was my first experience with government. And then when I graduated from the University of Denver, I got a job with the United States Congressman in Washington, D.C., Frank Evans of Colorado, and I worked for him for 2 years on his staff, doing what junior level staffers did in those days. And those were the days of Watergate and Richard Nixon, so it was a fascinating time to be in Washington, D.C.
Oh my goodness.
But I decided I wanted to come back to the West where I'd grown up in Colorado and go back and ski some more, and that's when I got into broadcasting.
Okay, and you got into TV right away, radio?
Radio and TV. I worked for a radio and television station in Colorado Springs, and that's where I learned the business, learned the trade, really. It's a craft, it's a trade. And I became a broadcast journalist. For all intents and purposes, that was what I was very proud to be, and that's what I enjoyed doing. And back then, in the mid-'70s and early '80s, television and radio were a lot of fun. They really were. They weren't the business that they are today, but it was good service to the community to go out and report on events that were going on. In those days, we didn't cover as many accidents and live breaking events as television news tends to focus on today. So it was a different kind of atmosphere, but it was sure a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course, things are way different today. Social media and everything, internet is...
It's blown it up.
Yeah.
It really has. Yeah, the social phenomenon, the social media, I know in your business you have to have a presence on social media. You can't sell real estate without having a Facebook page today. So those are the kinds of things that you're kind of obligated to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think maybe we're losing a little bit of ourselves with all of the social media, that we don't have the same kind of privacy that we used to have. And I think we're missing something there just to a certain degree. On the other hand, we get an awful lot of information very quickly, and that's what it's all about. People having information at the drop of a hat. So here we are. And
some of it is even correct and true and not fake.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and then conjecture happens and so on. But in any case, so how'd you get into the TV stations here in the Oregon area?
I was in California. I took a year out of being in Colorado. I worked in Denver and in Colorado Springs, and I decided to go to California to see what Los Angeles had to offer. I was in my early 30s and young. I didn't have any children, so it seemed like a good time to go and try what LA had to offer.
Yeah.
And I lucked out and got some freelance jobs. I landed on General Hospital, the soap opera. I had a part on General Hospital for a while.
Gosh.
So that was kind of fun. But the general manager at Coin TV had been general manager in Denver, and I sent him my resume, and he said, come on up to Portland, and he hired me, and I was going to stay for 3 or 4 years and go back to Colorado, and I never did. I ended up staying in Oregon, and that was in 1983.
Yeah.
And I've been here ever since, and haven't looked back. It's really been fun.
I know the feeling. I landed here in 1985 for what was allegedly a 3-month engineering contract at the time. A 3-month contract back in 1985. I'm still here, and it's 2019.
It has a way of kind of sucking you in, doesn't it? The
You wanna
whole
stay,
culture of Oregon, yeah.
Even with spring and allergies. And
You know, the Indians used to call the Willamette Valley the Valley of Sickness because of the allergies. So just bear in mind that it goes back quite a bit.
Good. We're not the first.
No.
Eric, some experts think that broadcast news is headed for extinction, perhaps because of some of the things we just discussed. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been impressed over the last few years with how local television has incorporated the whole aspect of social media into their presentation. That just recently I took a tour of Channel 12, KPTV, which is just down the block from where we're recording here. And the way that they use the social media platform and the internet for their news coverage is nothing short of astonishing. They really do a great job of bringing it all together, and so do the other 3 stations, the commercial stations.
Yeah.
And of course OPB has been doing this for a number of years with their multi-platforms. So I think that broadcast in itself is probably a dinosaur technology, and I think a lot of people appreciate that. However, when the day comes when the electronics go and all we have is the radio waves and the television waves that are passing through our skulls every day, somebody's going to invent some kind of a device that gives us an opportunity to find out what's going on through that as well. So no, I don't see broadcasting ever going away. I see it becoming a larger part of the news machine. And I think if you look at what the Oregonian has done, what the Tribune, Portland Tribune and the Pamplin papers have done with their platforms, they've incorporated a lot of the social media as well, and they've gone into some television aspects to cover the news. So I think we're all going to have to just choose that news source and be comfortable with it, with the assurance that it's right. But I think it's also incumbent on us as news consumers to try as many of these different platforms as we possibly can to see who is right and who isn't right, and support those who are and let the ones who aren't go by the wayside.
Figure out who we trust and
Who we trust.
and follow them.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, news is supposed to be truthful, balanced, and interesting or relevant. And the country has become a bit polarized in recent years. So I wonder what your thoughts are on how the media is doing in that regard.
A bit polarized, I think, Phil, is an understatement of great magnitude. I'm troubled by it. I'll be 70 years old very soon, in less than a month as we record this. And to see this polarization really troubles me. It hurts my heart. It makes me worry, and it creates dark moods that 70-year-olds shouldn't have, but do. I'm not quite sure what the answer is on that, other than the fact that we are going to, at some point, have to decide that we're better together than we are apart. And I know that here in Beaverton, I volunteer with the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement, and it is a much more diverse group of people today than it was when I first went on that board in 2004.
Wow.
In 2004, it was a lot of old white people like me who were on that committee, and today it's young women, it's people of color, recent immigrants. We have all kinds of voices on that committee, and I think we're beginning to find in that committee, just in that little microcosm of Beaverton, a voice for Beaverton. And we have more in common than we have not in common. And I think that's where we're going to have to focus. What I see right now is a big power struggle. And in my years in covering politics, we had an ebb and a flow of power struggles throughout the years. I recall the Nixon years. I recall some of the things that went on in Colorado back in the 70s, where we had tremendous power struggles between the parties, and it didn't work out well for either party. So I think we've got to sit down and decide we're better than we are. But we have local government, we have local communities, and you as a realtor know that it's very important. The community is really, really important to bringing people together.
Yes, absolutely. Good point. Interesting. So BCCI, Beaverton Community, you said?
Committee for Community Involvement.
Thank you. Does what specifically?
It was, BCCI is an outgrowth of Senate Bill 100 here in Oregon, the land use bill.
Oh.
And it was designed and it was set up so that citizens, and originally it was called the Beaverton Committee for Citizen Involvement. We changed the name several years ago to more accurately reflect the true community meaning of the group. But it was there to primarily advise City Council on land use matters, so that neighborhoods could go to BCCI and say, we're not happy with this particular land use decision, and BCCI would take a look at it. We would get input from the neighborhood associations, and we would go to City Council and say, we think you're making a mistake here.
By putting a shopping center here.
By putting a shopping center here, or a
gas station there.
Whatever, gotcha. Those kinds of things. And over the years, that role evolved to not only include land use and land use planning and advice to the council on that, but also more inclusion in city government by the neighborhoods and by the neighborhood associations, and to try to get people more actively involved in Beaverton's city government, and conversely expose Beaverton city government to more people in the neighborhoods, to let people know what the city does for them and how they can access those services.
Interesting.
So it's a very influential group of folks from all the neighborhoods and all the neighborhood associations, and City Council pays attention to what BCCI has to say.
Very interesting.
Most of the time.
Okay, interesting. I also want to hear about your county involvement, but we need to take a quick break first, if that's okay.
Sure.
So we'll be right back after a short break, and we'll continue our discussion.
Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Taylor and I'm with TV Toastmasters. My home group is Feedbackers in Beaverton, Oregon. I first joined Toastmasters for a couple reasons. I was nervous. I had trouble speaking in front of others. I needed some help. And when I joined Toastmasters, not knowing what to expect, I learned several things. One, it gave me the confidence to speak in front of others. I learned how to take constructive criticism. I benefited from that. That benefit was the confidence to get a job. When I took the suggestions in the club, when I started speaking in front of a group and remained speaking through my role, doing table topics, getting topics that you're unaware, learning how to think on your feet, learning how to speak on your feet. I first started working managing the Berkshire Hathaway account. I started as a back office role, not the face of the company. It didn't take long until I was dealing directly with the executives. Today I give executive briefings for Verizon Enterprise in the highest level in the enterprise space. And I'm grateful, and I owe all of that to Toastmasters. Thank you.
Welcome back. My name is Philip Mandel, and I'm having a fascinating discussion with Eric Schmidt.
You're very kind, Phil. Thank you.
Eric, we talked about the Beaverton, say it again, BCCI.
Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement.
Oh gosh, too many syllables.
Yeah, there are.
And I know you're also involved in Washington County government. And I'm curious if you can tell us more about that and why you do it and what they do.
Well, when I was unceremoniously asked to leave broadcasting in 2004, 2003, I needed work.
Yeah.
So I found a job with the Association of Oregon Counties in Salem. And at that time, they needed someone to basically handle their communication mission, handle the media, work with the media, not handle the media. You don't handle the media, you work with the media. Provide information to the various county governments across the state about what the legislature was doing for and to counties. Work with the National Association of Counties on issues of importance in Washington, D.C. to Oregon counties. So that was a great job, and the first 4 or 5 years that I worked for them, I was also a lobbyist for AOC, the Association of Oregon Counties, going to the legislature and lobbying on behalf of some of the issues that face county government at state government level. And I also went back east 4 or 5 times a year to lobby Congress on behalf of Oregon counties, primarily in the federal forest lands, trust land, forest payments, county payments issue. So that was a fascinating part of the job as well. Oregon has 36 counties, as you well know, 120 elected county commissioners and county judges, and they formed an organization to basically provide them with information about what's going on and to advocate for what they need at the state and federal level.
Interesting.
So Washington County is a big part of that organization, obviously. It's the second largest county in Oregon in terms of population. Probably as influential as Multnomah County today in terms of what its economics and cultural and other factors going into the metropolitan area, Clackamas County being a big part of that.
Right, Washington County with the huge high-tech engine, and of course Nike.
Nike and tech and Intel and a whole lot of other things. But you know, Washington County is a well-run, is a really great organization, a lot of great people there. And they bring me in every now and then to do some contract work, and I really appreciate the opportunity to stay involved. But Washington County, like Umatilla County, like Curry County down south, have one basic problem in common, and that is that a lot of people who live in Oregon live in a county. We all live in counties, but we don't know what counties do. We use the services that counties provide, but we're not quite sure why. We drive on county roads, but we're not sure where a county road starts and a state road ends and that kind of thing. So a big challenge for Oregon counties and the Association of Oregon Counties is to provide the information to Oregonians about what county government is and what county government does.
I would love to know more about that, because as far as I know, there's county police, sheriff, who are either your friends or your enemies, depending on whether you need them or you want to get off the, go through the signal with, when it's yellow. Or, and of course in real estate, I know about the recorder's office and the tax collector.
And the planning and all of the things that go into that. But counties, the Board of County Commissioners in each county is also the mental health authority, the public health authority. So there are a lot of things that go into that. Public health is a huge issue in Oregon and remains so and will always be so. Emergency management is a huge part of the county portfolio. So counties have an awful lot to do, and folks don't always know what the counties are doing.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, tell you what, switching gears just a bit.
Sure.
Since we're here at a mini Toastmasters meeting, I'm curious about your perspective on public speaking as being part of being a public official or being involved in public service.
My opinion is that if you are an elected public official in the state of Oregon and you don't know how to speak comfortably in front of groups of people, large and small, you're not going to be a particularly effective elected official. Having said that, I have had experience with a number of county officials and city officials over my years in Oregon as a reporter and a journalist, and with the counties, of knowing people who have gone to the meetings, have attended the meetings, have sat at the desk, have voted, and have never spoken a word to anybody about anything that they're doing. And they continue to get reelected. So a lot of that is force of personality, and of course in smaller communities it can happen differently. But largely in today's world, if you don't have the ability to be able to interact with people, to speak to groups of people about issues that you're passionate about or that you need to deal with, or that you can't solicit information and input from people, I think you're not going to be a particularly effective public official. And over the 11, 12 years that I was with the Association of Oregon Counties, I saw those people who were not effective in being able to communicate with their constituents, with their voters, and they aren't there anymore, by and large. The ones who could communicate are the most effective and are still there, by and large.
Did you have any specific training, or were you born with a golden voice and the ability to stand and be confident in front of others?
My mother and father met at a radio station. My father was the afternoon disc jockey in the 1940s. He was a big celebrity, and my mother was the opera lady, and she had theater training. So I grew up speaking correctly and learning how to talk to people, and it just kind of came naturally to me. However, over the years I have studied the art of public speaking And I think it is something that if you don't know how to do it, you should learn how to do it, because it's really a great skill. And I know in your case, you know, you've talked about your experience with Toastmasters and Toastmasters and the difference that it's made to you.
Right.
I think you're a classic case of why Toastmasters works.
Oh gosh, I'm of the opinion that no one should be able to speak in front of others unless they've had Toastmasters training or some other kind of background that allows them to do oratory confidently and make a point and not be afraid. We were speaking of, you talked about somebody testifying or that you've been a lobbyist. I remember years ago when I went to testify against an amendment in Salem, and I had my speech handwritten, and I went there and just kind of read it and mumbled it, and then it apparently caught somebody's interest and said, "Could you say that again?" I have to read this again. And I was so bad. And more recently, I was hoping to testify on the bill that's currently in the state Senate, but in House, but at the moment it was in the Senate, which is regarding Holocaust and genocide education.
A very important
hopefully
bill.
Becoming mandatory in Oregon. And I was there without a script, and I was dying to get in front of that microphone and just let it rip right from the heart. And that's all because of years of Toastmasters.
Those are usually the best remarks, the ones that come from the heart, as you well know.
Right.
I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
Right. But I admire that you were so lucky to have the role models that you had.
I'm very fortunate. It's indeed. But
came out of the room with a microphone in front of your...
I hate to say it, but I think if I got involved in Toastmasters, I'd probably embarrass myself. So it's, I really admire you folks. And I've been to a couple of Toastmasters meetings over the last few years, and it's remarkable to see these folks stand up and just off the top of their head and get it going.
Yep, and of course we all started with our knees trembling and sweat drooling, and I've seen people get up there like they're going to give a speech, start to cry and sit down.
Yeah.
And we applaud ravenously because we've all been somewhere in that feeling zone about being terrified in front of people. So anyway, so back to maybe it's politics, maybe not, but are voters being adequately informed these days so they can make good choices?
I think they are. I really do. The number of sources that we talked about a little earlier, I think they're all out there. Not too long ago here at TVC-TV and my program, City Talk, that I host and co-produce, I had Jason Snyder, who's the mayor of Tigard. And I said, in Beaverton, we had more people apply for positions on boards and commissions this year than we've had in a long, long time. And he said, in Tigard, we had the same thing. We've had a lot more involvement and interest in involvement from the voters, from the citizens in both communities. And this is true across Washington County, I'm told.
Yeah.
One of the reasons that Mayor Snyder thinks it's happening is because of the social media next door. I don't know if you're familiar with Nextdoor.
I wondered what was driving that.
But he thinks Nextdoor is bringing a lot of people out the way the NIMBY issues, not in my backyard issues, used to bring people out. That we now have a different platform for people to be able to express some of their concerns about what's happening in their community, some of the things that they would like to happen in their community. And so I think that's probably driving quite a bit of it as well. In addition to the fact that people are now beginning to realize that they are part of a community and that they need to be involved in a community, and the best way to make it happen is to get in and do it.
Wow. Okay, that's fantastic news. Eric, in the 30 seconds we have left, what's different about being on television now than from your years in the past?
I can have hair on my face. Back in the days, I wasn't allowed to. I had to shave every day, and so no. Seriously, I think it's just working in the television atmosphere that I'm in now. It's a lot more relaxed because we're focused on issues. We're focused on government services. We're focused on getting information out. We're not focused on gotcha journalism or trying to dig up scandals.
Gotcha.
This is all about good government and good television.
Fabulous. Eric, thank you for joining me on
Thank you, Phil.
TV Toastmasters. I've had a fascinating discussion with Eric Schmidt. This is Philip Mandel for TV Toastmasters. We'll see you next time.
Speak in public? I'd rather be burned at the stake. At least that's how I used to feel, until Toastmasters. I went online and found a club that met every week at lunchtime, and they were close to my office, so it worked out great. I was really scared when I started, but no one pressured me to speak, or pushed me to do anything I wasn't ready for. I felt safe, and I realized it was okay to be nervous and to make mistakes, because these people were going to support and encourage me no matter what. And now, well, let's just say things have changed. I speak in front of large groups, lead all-day seminars, and conduct presentations to top executives. Toastmasters changed my life.
There are over 100 Toastmasters clubs meeting all around the Portland, Vancouver area, near your office, home, or even your school. We meet on all days of the week, morning, noon, and night. Our clubs couldn't be more convenient or affordable at under $10 a month. Visit a couple locations and find the one that's just right for you. All the information you need is at toastmasters.org.